This was Lee Donkin's yard yesterday afternoon, flooded in water from a burst main at the top of the street. And believe it or not, this was the pool, the muddy water almost covering the step railings. The water also inundated his downstairs rumpus room, destroying carpet and other belongings. Lee is yet to hear from the Water Corporation's insurance assessor. He hopes they'll be paying.
I'm not real sure who's going to fix the damage.
Further up the street, workmen were repairing the burst main that caused all the damage. The main pipe broke at around 3:30 yesterday, the force of the water cracking the bitumen road and trapping a parked minibus. When a council work truck came to the rescue, it too became stuck in the hole. Darren Jones was in the minibus when it started sinking.
I had to get in and move it, and the back wheels, they give way, so I jumped out and told the guy from the water board to jump in and move it, and that's when the truck came in to help us, and that went down too.
The Water Corporation says the road will be repaired and opened sometime tomorrow. The corporation is still assessing the situation before deciding whether insurance will cover the damage. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
The Multicultural Education Plan is a 4-year program recognising the need to understand the diversity of cultures and languages in Australia from an early age. It's the result of lengthy talks between the Education Department and various communities. In Newcastle today, the initiative and the anti-discrimination policy were recognised.
We're hoping that the whole notion of racism, prejudice and the attitudes of people will be affected throughout the school community.
To help overcome language problems, an interpreter card is now available through the schools.
Parents of children who have concerns about being able to speak with someone in school about their children can access the interpreter card and so therefore be able to access an interpreter.
Children from non-English speaking families represent more than 20% of new enrolments across the state. In addition to these, there are thousands more from multicultural backgrounds.
I could fully see where the benefits of multicultural education obviously will then filter through, hopefully, to the older generation.
Starting in primary school, it's hoped students will help spread the message of greater understanding beyond the classroom. Melinda Smith, NBN News.
It's a time of big boats, big fish and big money for the port. Nelson Bay has become home base to more than 200 game fishing boats for the week-long tournament. Coincidentally, it was during the fishing contest last year that Port Stephens health officers noticed a marked increase in the faecal coliform or human waste count in the harbour waters.
We picked them up during our usual routine monitoring and because we hadn't done any monitoring prior to the event, it wasn't possible to say that it was being caused from the boats or whether it was caused from a downpour and as a result of the water coming through the stormwater pipes.
Boats are required to use holding tanks in inshore waters, and tests so far have been unable to prove that the increased counts came from the fishing fleet. Samples taken at a number of points around the harbour over the past week have been within tolerance levels.
This year, to discount any problems from the people living on the boats, we've decided to do sampling prior to the tournament, during the tournament and after, and we'll be looking at faecal coliform levels from around the beach, near the boats and from stormwater pipes.
The auditions attracted hundreds to the Cohiba Bowling Club as the performers went through their paces in front of the supportive audience. NBN presenters Chris Barth, Mike Rabbett and Nad Jeffrey introduced the hopeful stars. The acts kept the crowd entertained and the armchair critics busy. The entrants were pruned to 20 finalists who'll star in the Midnight to Dawn segment on the telethon telecast on March 13. They'll perform a colourful array of acts, including singing, dancing and comedy. One of the contestants, 19-year-old Karina Goodwin of Windale, is in remission from bone cancer. She made the final and will do her bit for better treatment and facilities for cancer patients. And fame is what 2 minutes on the screen might bring the budding performer.
It was a match that saw Toronto rule the roost. The first points of the game came with a penalty goal from Mark Gleeson. Tempers flared after a 50-metre run was thwarted by Waratah Mayfield. Their tight defence continued through the match, but they just couldn't get the points on the board. The try was disallowed. A little more success, however, for Toronto when Wayne Smith barraged through the maroon and gold lineup. The final score, 10-0. In other matches, North Nelson Bay beat Central Charlestown, Cessnock and Souths a draw, Maitland too good for Lakes and Curry and West 8-all. This was Robert Holland's last first-grade match. However, his team Southern Lakes was batting, and as Dutchy Holland isn't a batsman, he spent most of the day on the hill. Robert Holland is a legend in Australian cricket. In the 1984-85 test against the West Indies, he took 10 wickets, but it's time to call it a day.
I think it's an appropriate time now to finish. I've been playing for quite a few years, and Southern Lakes Cricket Club is going quite well. We have a lot of promising players, so there's plenty of good guys there to take my place.
After 30 years in the game, the Newcastle District Cricket Association will recommend he become a life member. It's the first time a player will be granted the honour. Terry Mittos has been the Australian bodybuilding champion 5 times. He's now Mr World. Today he and fellow bodybuilder Gina Morgan-Young were in Taree as part of a bodybuilding fitness seminar. Organisers say it's important for those young people entering the sport to realise that fat can be lost and muscle gained through nutrition and fitness rather than chemical substances. Among those in the audience at the Taree Police Youth Club, many women interested in gaining a few tips from the Australian Masters champion.
If you're too muscular, then you won't win the competition. So you've got to remember that you've got to keep your curves there and that you are a woman.
The Department of Agriculture has officers on hand to discuss cattle and sheep farming. They can also analyse soil samples and give advice on other traditional areas on the land. The latest in farm machinery, including irrigation equipment and electric fencing, is on display. Expo also offers a few suggestions about how farmers can diversify, farming deer or perhaps alpacas from South America. The Department of Fisheries can advise people about growing a crop underwater. But this year's Expo isn't just for farmers. Organisers have combined with Taree's Home Expo. There are the latest products from local and interstate wholesalers. The Expo will continue tomorrow at Taree's Basketball Stadium.
The Mile Prawn Festival is more than a celebration of the crustacean. It's a good excuse for up to 30,000 people to party.
The session today was double the size it's ever been, and I couldn't believe it myself. And the weather's been really good to us, so as you can see by the numbers here.
Naturally, the prawn, or at least the action of stuffing it into one's mouth, features highly over the weekend. The celebrity prawn-eating contest set the pace, but not even our own lightning fingers Deneen could outdo Great Lakes Deputy Shire President Jim Gilby. But the celebs' gutsy efforts were shrimp in scale compared to the World Prawn-Eating Championship. And the king of pigging down prawns is Fred Monk, a world record holder for eating a kilo in 4 minutes and 3 seconds, and a man with a fan club almost as big as his appetite. Despite some tough competition, Fred ranks supreme again, a kilo reduced to rubble in 4 minutes and 9 seconds.
I never eat prawns between this competition and the next one.
So there's no practice or training regime?
No practice. Although I did peel half a kilo of prawns from people that were sitting down there having trouble with them.
Right.
So I peeled them for them just for a bit of practice.
It's a messy business, isn't it?
Yes, there's no doubt about that.
The festival continues tomorrow, with the money raised shelled out to charities, including the NBN Telethon. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Each side gets a maximum of 15 overs and the pressure is on to rack up a quick score. Fielders who are normally reserved and quiet bring out their best. And batsmen get the chance to throw caution to the wind. The final is being played now. The winning team will collect $700. And on Newcastle Beach this afternoon, some of the country's best volleyballers were going through their paces. Amongst the competitors, a few who have played on the international circuit. Today's games are a lead up to next week's big telethon competition, again on Newcastle Beach. And out at Argenton, nearly 100 ladies took part in the annual Ladies Silver Classic. Defending champion 16-year-old Joanna Wally had troubles early on but later regained her confidence. Anne-Marie Manil from Morisset was in good form and worked hard throughout the day. The competition is one of the premier events on the local ladies' golfing calendar and often the showplace for young talent.
When the John Hunter was designed, Wallsend Hospital and Royal Newcastle's Casualty Department were still open. On average, about 900 patients are treated by the John Hunter's Emergency Department every week. 1/4 of those patients are so sick they need to be admitted to hospital.
When the hospital was built, we didn't expect that number of people requiring emergency care.
Next month, the design and function of the unit will be reviewed. General Manager Lyndon Sayes says a number of issues will be addressed. He believes there are shortcomings in the way the department was designed, with a lack of accessibility to vital equipment and a shortage of storage space. He says a number of patients are forced to wait for treatment on beds in this corridor. The whole area may need to be rebuilt.
Interestingly enough, the external facades of the hospital are such that can happen with relatively little pain and lower costs than we might otherwise expect.
The review of the department will take place next month and work is expected to begin next year. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Clubs from as far afield as Sydney made the trip to Nambucca Heads to be welcomed by this sort of reception. The competition was hot as the teams fought it out for the $2,000 prize money, and there were even some casualties from the battles being pitched on both playing fields at Coronation Park. Out of the fray of the 2 days of soccer came some great goals and an enjoyable spectacle for the large crowd that came to support their side. The winner of the men's division was Macleay Valley from Kempsey, and Port United of Port Macquarie took out the women's division. Organisers say the Challenge Cup will be back again next year.
After 4.5 years in Cabinet, Bob Brown is preparing to hold talks with the Prime Minister and his ministerial colleagues when he flies to Canberra tomorrow. The visit could be his last as a federal minister. Mr Keating will soon announce his new lineup. Bob Brown says at age 59 he won't be surprised if he's replaced.
I don't want to preempt it at all. I'm going to Canberra this week. I'll have a talk to the Prime Minister over the next couple of days, and I'll have a talk to some of my colleagues down there. Let me say that whatever the changes were, if there were to be changes, Bob Brown would be very comfortable with them.
Mr Brown's removal from Cabinet would leave the Hunter without any ministerial representation.
We would be no less disadvantaged, we would be no more advantaged, because I believe that any democratic socialist government of the kind that we represent in the National Parliament will give consideration to this area as this area deserves, but no more than other areas deserve.
In the Hunter, 5 Labor candidates convincingly won all seats with increased majorities. In the new electorate of Patterson, ALP candidate Bob Horne won 48% of primary votes. But today, Liberal contender Bob Roberts refused to concede defeat, holding out for the final count of all postal, absentee and provisional votes.
There are just over 73,000 constituents in the Patterson electorate, and already 90% of the vote has been counted. Bob Horne needs only 32% of votes outstanding to gain an absolute majority, and that, according to the experts, puts the law of probability against the Liberal candidate.
Looking at the votes that have been counted thus far, it appears more likely that Bob Horne would get the sufficient votes from the preferences and the remaining absence and postals in order to secure the majority he requires.
After 4.5 years in Cabinet, Bob Brown is preparing to hold talks with the Prime Minister and his ministerial colleagues when he flies to Canberra tomorrow. The visit could be his last as a federal minister. Mr Keating will soon announce his new lineup. Bob Brown says at age 59 he won't be surprised if he's replaced.
Well, you see, I'm almost 60. 2 more terms will see me out. I will then be 65. And that's the usual time at which people retire.
Mr Brown's removal from Cabinet would leave the Hunter without any ministerial representation.
We would be no less disadvantaged, we would be no more advantaged, because I believe that any democratic socialist government of the kind that we represent in the National Parliament will give consideration to this area as this area deserves, but no more than other areas deserve.
In the Hunter, 5 Labor candidates convincingly won all seats with increased majorities. In the new electorate of Patterson, ALP candidate Bob Horne won 48% of primary votes. But today, Liberal contender Bob Roberts refused to concede defeat, holding out for the final count of all postal, absentee and provisional votes.
There are just over 73,000 constituents in the Patterson electorate, and already 90% of the vote has been counted. Bob Horne needs only 32% of votes outstanding to gain an absolute majority, and that, according to the experts, puts the law of probability against the Liberal candidate.
Looking at the votes that have been counted thus far, it appears more likely that Bob Horn would get the sufficient votes from the preferences and the remaining absence and postals in order to secure the majority he requires.
Last month, Alderman Doug Carley spent a few days at home because of what he described as work-related stress. Today, Lake Macquarie Council released a statement saying that as a consequence of medical advice, His Worship the Mayor has requested leave of absence from Council for a short period.
It's a medical-related illness, and the certificate says that he's to have a short time away from the Council. We expect that this will be resolved within a month.
Alderman Carley was not available for comment. However, it's believed he'll take around a month off work. The request for leave will go to tonight's council meeting. Deputy Mayor Alderman Laurie Manning will fill the mayor's place while he's away. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
Despite the tough times, Telethon 93 touched the hearts of thousands as donations poured in non-stop for 24 hours. The final tally on the night just pipped the $2 million mark. Months of planning, hours of broadcasting and the generosity of viewers from far and wide joining forces in the fight against cancer.
At this time, of course, we've spread our wings. Tamworth Base Hospital to serve the northwest region. We're building a breast cancer unit there. The same here at the Mater Hospital, a world-class breast cancer unit. That'll also house the melanoma unit. And hospitals right up the coast will also be receiving pieces of cancer support and detection equipment.
Telethon manager Julie Croker says the action is still continuing.
There's a lot of big events still to happen over the next couple of weeks, and still, of course, our art union to be drawn, and that's on the 18th of April. So if people still want to buy tickets or sell books, they're more than welcome. We're still hoping to get a lot more money in from that.
All pledges and new donations can be taken to any branch of the Commonwealth Bank or can be sent to PO Box 3333 in the areas shown. Melinda Smith, NBN News.
The survey says people generally have only a minimal knowledge of the coal industry. Of 1,000 people tested, more than half didn't realise coal is used in electricity generation. In Newcastle, a coal city, only 22% of people surveyed connected coal with steel making. Most people believe coal is more important for home heating, yet the proportion of coal-heated fires in domestic use is negligible. At the same time, the survey found a clear majority believe development can be compatible with nature conservation. There is support for the idea that mining can be carried out under national parks. 64% of people say they need more information on the coal industry. Only 30% believe they know enough. The New South Wales Coal Association admits it has a problem, the industry needing community support and understanding to keep working. With the survey results in tow, the association will now start a communications program beginning with education packs in schools. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
This is a recession that Australia had to have.
And according to Phil Riven, it's the recession we're going to have for some time to come.
I think we're only a third of the way through it, but I think 95, 96 could be just plain awful, and then perhaps 97 is the true recovery year.
Mr Riven told the Newcastle Business Club Australia had better brace itself for an unemployment rate of 14% or more. According to the latest figures, the Hunter's already passed that at 16.9%. Yet the head of IBIS Business Information predicts the region can look forward to job creation in new service industries, such as those aimed at keeping the household in shape.
Which means more growth in tourism, but it also means growth in things like mowing lawns, landscaping, painting bedrooms, steam cleaning carpets, tutoring children, cooking meals for the home. All of those are the equivalent of 100 years ago to the formation of the manufacturing industry.
Scott Bevan, NBN News.
After last week's loss, the team met for the first time this afternoon and immediately went behind closed doors. It's believed coach David Waite wanted the players to view video of the game while he identified a few aspects of his side's performance. The team to meet Western Suburbs at Marathon Stadium contained some surprises. Tony Kemp has been given the chance to make an impression at the expense of Tony Herman. Kemp is busting to become a regular first grader because his contract is up later this year and he needs some good performances to secure another one. Robbie O'Davis moves to fullback with Brad Godden stood down after last week's bump on the head. That move also clears the way for 21-year-old Jamie Ainscough. Ainscough will be in the centres against his old club. Starting the game on the bench will be Jason Martin and Paul Marquette. The full side is O'Davis, Schuster, Brunker, Kemp, Ainscough, Hagan, Rodwell, Glanville, Mullane, Boyd, Harrigan, McCormack and Sargent.
The arguments were flying hard and fast at the Foster Tuncurry Memorial Services Club. For the last 6 months, students from Gloucester in the south, Woolgoolga in the north and Moree in the west have been fighting for glory in the public speaking competition. It went down to 4 finalists. Alison McLeod from Maxville High had a story about learning to drive. But she couldn't match Armidale High's Peter Nolan, who won the judge's ear and a trip to South Africa. Peter may have the gift of the gab, but he'll be keeping out of politics.
No, my mother says I'm far too honest for that, so I'm hoping to be an actor.
Music, dancing, food and fun. The celebrations at Herons Creek today were exactly like every good party should be. And more than 150 people had plenty to party about, a century of teaching the area's children. Students of today, and in some cases tomorrow, got into the spirit, dressing as many of their predecessors did. While the entertainment continued outside, many were reminiscing over old photos and memorabilia inside the classroom. And as at every birthday party, there was a cake to cut, and who better to do it than Herons Creek Public School's oldest and youngest students.
This 50-page document outlines the future direction of Lake Macquarie City. It was compiled by the Hunter Valley Research Foundation and 22 business, community and council representatives.
We've dealt with a whole range of issues, looking at the whole structure of Lake Macquarie: community life, social justice, environment, economy and identity.
Researcher Charles Black believes it's important that Lake Macquarie strengthens its identity.
Certainly there are very valuable and important components of Lake Macquarie, and that has got to be stressed and promoted and enhanced, but also Lake Macquarie does have a role in the regional context as a part of the Hunter region. We like to see Lake Macquarie as a dynamic, growing city within the Hunter region.
Mr Black says the goals of the document are achievable, and it's hoped they'll be implemented over the next 10 to 15 years.
What it's doing is to try and paint a picture of the future that we want and to go out there and get that future. And if we don't set our goals and our ambitions high, we'll be left with what we've got, which most people tell us is unacceptable.
The Hunter Valley Research Foundation believes the success of the document depends on public input. So with every vision statement, residents will also receive a response document which asks them for their opinions, ideas and any criticism they may have. The document is available from the Toronto and Charlestown Libraries and Lake Macquarie Council. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
They call him dangerous, but maybe it should be Dapper Don Wilford, the 31-year-old fighter looking cool after a 24-hour flight from New York. But he does have a dangerous pro-fight history of 18 wins, including 15 knockouts and just 2 defeats. Don says he does have one KO punch that can end a fight.
I do. I'm not going to tell you which one, but I have a pretty good one.
Dangerous Don is in Newcastle to fight Australian welterweight and WBC international champion Spike Chaney on Friday night. As Don worked out with his trainer, Carl the Assassin Sullivan looked on. He's fighting Troy Waters on the same card. Both Americans are confident of victory. Dangerous Don sees it as a lead-up to greater things.
We're talking about a title fight if we get past this fight.
Peter Ryan, NBN News.